Hi everyone and welcome to the show. This is Franz Sidney today with our amazing friend all the way from New Hampshire, and his name is Robert Minicucci. I know he's an Italian surname, but he is in America, okay? Hi Robert.
Hello, Franz. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao. So yeah, sorry guys, this is not gonna be in Italian, although it will be so fun to do.
Yes.
With your Italian, did you say like 20 words so far? So that's going to be great. But today, you guys are going to help you with something really, really interesting. Let's analyze our environment today. So we are all in a very high pressure environment. It's very hard to, let's say, turn off our brain. It goes the whole day and night. Sometimes our brain gets stuck in a little bit in the task mode loop. So we have this and task, another task, we never end. And we have lots of information. We are processing data. But are we actually processing our lives? Are we deciding what really matters? And because we are moving at the speed of this machine, the speed of AI, our nervous system is paying the price. You can see that with insomnia, with stress, and with a lot more problems. You know what they are. So my guest today, Robert, has been for 25 years in the healthcare marketing. So he's a veteran, but he's also a certified listener poet. And you might think, what does poetry have to do with stress? And I'm like, let me tell you, or actually let him tell you, because Robert is here to tell you something new. So he's here to show you that poetry can be the biological circuit breaker for all the stress that we're all under in this very important time of our lives. I know I'm all about art, music, poetry, theater, dance, graphic arts, photography, something, dancing, moving, doing something. But you know, the act of writing, even with a pen, something that some people don't realize, it's got a huge amount of neuroplasticity. That's so important for us. So we're going to discuss all this and see how Robert got started and everything. And then we're going to also give you a 15 minutes reflective practice that you can use from today to shift your brain from a state of fear, of noise, of being unsettled, to a state of integration and healing. So we're now going to pass the time to Robert, who's going to start talking about the issue. Now, we know, Robert, you've been in the data-driven branding world. Very busy.
Healthcare communications. A lot of writing.
Exactly. So in that most high-pressure clinical environment full of data, so why all this data and spreadsheet is failing us? We should be in control. And actually, why do we need this power of healing for poetry? So what void are you going to fill with poetry? Just get going and we just listen to you.
Well, sure. So I feel like, let me just get started about a quote that the actor Ethan Hawke talked about in terms of creativity and how people don't spend a lot of time thinking about like poetry and things of that sort, and they're not really concerned about it on a daily basis. But what he says is that, you know, when something massive happens, like a father dies or a child dies, or there's a moment in your heart, in your life that someone breaks your heart, you don't know what to do with that. You're not quite sure how to process it. And I find that, you know, those are the moments that people, you know, turn to poetry. And I think it's the kind of thing where, you know, did anybody feel like this before? You know, what is happening to me? And I think, you know, I would say that poetry has the power to heal some of those feelings. I also think that, you know, in the larger context, I agree with you, friends, that, you know, art and creativity is not a luxury. It's something that is actual sustenance, to quote Ethan again, and we need it. So where I find the poetry really works is that idea of helping process your feelings and emotions. And I'll just talk from my own experience. I came back to it a few years ago, and it was the sort of thing where I found, you know, it was just a moment for me to sit down and think about what's happening in my own brain. And also not only think about it, but also expel things that were not very helpful. Thoughts, feelings, just a way to clear. So there are a couple of different ways about it. It could have clears out your head, and you know, you don't have these ruminating thoughts that are sticking around there. You can clear out the space and bring in new, more positive things. So for me, it was just a way to really help heal and control we're always looking for some kind of control, which I think is not always the case. But I think if you're able to process what's happening in your brain and the thoughts that you're having, and I use poetry as a way to do that. Some people use other things. But for me, it's all about making a connection. When I've done readings outside and people come up to me afterwards saying, I really understand, I've had that same experience, or I've felt that as well. So I use poetry to connect. I use it to also help expel and deal with feelings in my brain that are not always helpful. And it just helps me open up a space to use that energy elsewhere. I find just being creative too, in that sort of moment or time, just helps bring my energy level up, and it makes me feel as if I've got more space to work with. So for me, it's a very therapeutic, for lack of a better term, way to clear out my head, make myself feel more engaged and more present. And I've been doing it now for about, I came back to it a while ago, sort of off the spur of the moment. And then through that, I've just continued to do it. I took some, I talked, Franz, you mentioned the Certified Listening Poet program. It's through an organization called the Good Listening Project. And what they do is their mission is to help people, use the power of poetry to help people heal. And it's through, they work with healthcare workers and caregivers and patients to help process grief, process what they're going through. They do a lot of work with organizations like the American Cancer Society and other healthcare organizations to come in and help healthcare workers as well as patients. So again, it goes back to connection, helping people feel like they're not alone, helping people feel like they're heard. And they do a lot of good work in terms of helping people to heal.
Okay, so I got it. You can do this, but most people listening will think that they cannot write poetry because I think, I went to Liceo Classico, I studied Dante with Divine Comedy. That's a long while ago, guys. I don't know how to write poetry. And so how, just going to be a little bit more people say, it's going to be tedious. I'm going to have to look for a dictionary for words. So how do we move from this concept of doing the poetry in the classroom to do it, use it as a tool? It sounds a bit complex to me, so you tell us.
It's not that complex at all. I mean, I think the best way to do it is to, just sit down for 15 minutes, usually at the beginning of the day. If you can find 15, even 5 minutes, 5 or 15 minutes, with a pen and a paper. And the idea is to just process what's happening in your brain, start free writing. I have some prompts that we could talk about too, just to get started. But the idea also, I think, is to, I think for me, poetry is like anything else that people do, right? You have people that like to run. You have people who like to fish. You have people who are woodworkers or they like sports. So for me, poetry is that as well. Some people like movies. I like to write poetry. That's it. And I have found similar people in the course of my time here that like to do the same thing. So I just like people like to sit down on Sunday to watch football. We get together once a week and we write and we talk about writing and we talk about poetry and we talk about things that are, that we've learned or we've seen, or here's a poem that I found that was really important to me and I want to share with the group. So, I mean, it's sort of the idea of just trying it. I mean, not getting too worried about what comes out. Don't worry about what comes out. It's not going to be great the first time. That's okay. So I think the other thing that's great about poetry is that I've always felt like this feeling. It's never done on the first draft, right? So just get that out. Start working with what you have and write for 15 minutes. See what comes up. See what you learn. I think I think poetry got a bad rap. Certainly when I went to high school, it was always people like Emily Dickinson, who I love, by the way, and T.S. Eliot, and really people that were kind of removed from what I lived on a day-to-day basis. And then I found other people like Charles Bukowski or, Kim Adonizio, or somebody who is really current is a woman by the name of Maggie Smith. I don't know if anybody's heard of Maggie Smith. She has several books out. She's had some poetry actually go viral. And there's this great poem that she has called Good Bones that I turn to on a regular basis if I'm feeling a need to read something or just have a cornerstone. I'd love to read it, Franz, if it's okay. All right, great. So Maggie's from Ohio, and it's just one of these wonderful poems that just kind of speaks to family and children and trying to raise kids. Good bones. Life is short, though I keep this for my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I'll keep for my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this for my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child broken, bagged, sunk in a lake. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible. And for every kind stranger, there is one who will break you, though I keep this for my children. I'm trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking you through a real shithole chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful.
What a nice invitation in the end of it. I can see why it would make you stir and think, yeah, then I kind of agree. It's almost like reading scriptures, makes you meditate.
Very much so. I think there are a lot of people that, there's the void that everybody tries to fill. Some people fill it with religion. Some people try to fill it with, nasty habits. I have no idea what that void is, but I know it's there for everybody. But when I write about it or talk about it with other people, I don't worry as much, And I love this poem in particular because there's this nice balance of, yes, there is bad things in the world, but that doesn't mean the world is bad. And I think she does a wonderful job balancing that and making you feel like there is hope. And I think that's what people are always looking for, is some sort of hope to keep going, to keep moving forward, to keep trying. So that was the other thing about in terms of the writing, just try it. And if it's not great, that's okay. We can't all be Maggie Smith, right? We can't all be Seamus Heaney, who's, a wonderful Irish poet that is loved in Ireland. So, I would say just try it. Find 15 minutes at the beginning of your day when you first wake up, get your coffee, find a nice quiet place to sit, and think about the first 2 minutes. We have some prompts we can talk about, sort of like, when I woke up this morning, I thought of, and then just go with it. See what comes up.
Very good. You know what? You remind me many years ago.
What do I remind you of?
We went to a restaurant in Roma, which is Ristorante Trilussa, which is all about poet Trilussa. And we bought a book, which I don't have anymore. My parents had it.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one piece of poetry from there, and says, Un'ape se posa su un bottone de rosa, lo succhia e se ne va. Tutto sommato, la felicità è una piccola cosa. Do you know what I just said?
No, I have no idea.
I said, this is in Romanesco, so it's not quite Italian, it's in Roman way of speaking. And Trilussa was a very famous poet, and in this restaurant they even have the pram.
Trilussa, was that his name? Trilussa?
Trilussa is T-R-I-L-U-S-S-A. You guys go and check out Trilussa.
I'm going to. And this is the other thing I love. Before I cut you off, I don't mean to cut you off, but this is what I love about poetry. Poetry has brought me connections with people from, from Italy to Paris to Singapore to South America. I mean, I have met so many different people and read so many different writers that's the other thing about it. I find like the connection is not just about you alone, but it's finding other people who feel the same way and all over the place. But anyway, please finish your thought. I didn't mean to, I just wanted to make sure I didn't lose that thought.
I know that people will be like, what the heck does this mean? I don't understand. And so it means a bee flies over a button of a rose, goes there, sucks the nectar, and flies away. Happy.
See, that's...
After all, happiness is a small thing. That's it.
See, you're a clinical hypnotherapist, right? And look how poetry has touched you, right? Do you think about poetry every day? No, but you sat down in a restaurant and you read this wonderful piece of poetry, and it's like, and that stays with you. That's the other thing I feel like. If you find the right poet that speaks to you, it will stay with you. Like, how long ago was that, Franz? How long was that?
I was 10 years old when we went. I mean, went 5 times to Rome, or 6. But I think it was a 10-year-old. And then my mom, who loved literature, she bought a whole book, probably from the store, because they had a little sale area in the restaurant. I mean, stuff.
Well, you've just given me a wonderful trip. We're on our way at some point soon. And when I'm going to go there and find that book and find that restaurant, I'm going to, thanks for that. That's a wonderful gift you gave me. Thank you.
Of course. And I'm sure there are so many books and so many quotes. I actually had a notebook from 1990s full of these quotes from people that really touched me. Because I thought, well, that's the time when we sit and ponder. Now, you guys listening, can you tell what's the difference between running, high performance, data, being in control, productivity, hustling?
Yeah, and poetry writing is a very solitary practice. But I think out of that, you can go and share, it's like a meditation. I mean, I think there's something to it. If you have any sort of practice, I view it that way. It helps me, it's a meditation of sorts.
It does. And if you do a little bit of research, just use Google if you want, or even Gemini. Find out the neuroplasticity behind the transformation that happens when you write poetry versus when you read poetry, when you sing poetry. There are so many things. And you might be now quite interested in maybe having a go today and see. So, as Robert was saying, getting started isn't really as hard. You just need pen and a paper and a brain. And why would you need pen and not something like, because neuroplasticity is different when you're doing something.
No, I used to write, and I've talked to this with other folks, like, is this strange? It's like, no, I use a fountain pen, and I start from that, and then I move to a computer. And I know a lot of people that do that. It's that connection, writing is basically thinking, right? And the same way I think writing poetry is writing down how you feel, or what moves you, or what makes you feel a certain way, and how it helps you process those feelings.
It is absolutely right. I recently bought a new fountain pen because my old ones are not working. And the first thing I did once finally the ink got flowing, I would just write in words. And these are beautiful words. I don't even want to throw them away.
No, it was funny you say that, because I actually wrote a poem one day trying to get the ink out of my pen. I had the same sort of experience, that it's just like, how can I write? I also feel like there are poems everywhere if you start and think about it. Everything from, like you said, just trying to get the pen flowing to, the bird that's, banging on the side of my house, or the wind that is, maybe, something you hear outside your home. There are poems everywhere. And I think if you accept, maybe that's the mantra I want people to walk away from. There are poems everywhere. You just have to be open to them and find them. And they come to you, frankly, too. I find that also happens. I will just I don't always sit down and write for 15 minutes every morning. And sometimes it just happens, I'm out doing errands, something as simple as that. Or I'm at the movies, or I'm at in a museum looking at art. That happened to me when I was in Paris. I had to sit down and write about a painting that I just saw, and had to just, my wife sort of laughed at me and walked off because she knew what was going on. She just, oh, there's Robert doing his thing again. So, and it's okay. It's okay. So for me, it's a very freeing experience, and I would challenge people. Mm-hmm. I would welcome the chance. There are poems everywhere, and just see what you can find. Start with that mantra, sit down and with a pen and paper, and see what comes out of your hand.
So the prompt that we need in the morning or in the evening, what could that be? This prompt that gets started.
Sure. So I mentioned the one about when I woke up this morning, but there are also you could pick words that you want to choose. What do you want to write about? You could write about, just pick 5 to 10 words and put them on a piece of paper before you start, and then try and work them into a poem. And it could be as simple as, birds, something you love, a plant or a place that you want to write about, something you hate, or name it. I had a similar experience this morning. Just something happened that I wasn't happy about, and I named it, and I'm like, I'm going to go write about this later, because it's the kind of thing that happens to me all the time, and that's the kind of thing I want to do. I mean, also, look, if people are looking for ideas too, you can jump on my website, which is aminorpoet.com, and see what I've got there. There's also some contributed articles I've written, but there are a lot of poetry there. You can just do it anywhere. I mean, I think if you just even went to Google and typed in poetry prompts, you would find a lot to get you started. And the also thing I would say is that you don't, find a poet, or if there's I would read poetry. I would also encourage people, find a poet that you like, that speaks to you. Like Maggie Smith is one. Ada Limon is another, who was our country's poet laureate. There are also local groups you can find. Find what speaks to you and go with that and see what happens. Read some poetry and then, write some poetry. There's a way, maybe read a poem and try to do your own, like in their style or their verse. I've done that as well with a wonderful poem called, from a book called Lithium. And I'm forgetting the poet's name at the moment. But it's just the kind of thing where there's no rules. There's nothing to start, nothing to hold you back. It's just you.
Maybe it would only be our own self-sabotage and thinking we're not good enough. But,
Yeah. But again, it doesn't matter. It's not meant to be good. It's the process. It's not the end result. And I think that's the other thing about you. We talked earlier about our lives and, the transactional nature of our culture, society, whatever. What's great about poetry is that it doesn't need to have an outcome. It's more about the process. It's more about getting, thoughts down and being creative. And I think that's what it comes down to. For me, it's how, I picked a field also that, creativity is a big part of it. So I get very excited when I've, written a new poem. And the creativity, is like caffeine for me as well. It gives me a boost. You're the clinical hypnotherapist. You all know about dopamine and delivery and reward systems. It's that kind of that's something that I use it for as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's useful to know that when we are thinking of something, it's one step. When we're starting to transmit these words into writing, especially if we're using a pen or pencil, even the finger, there are different processes in our brain. And it allows us to overcome even traumatic events or traumatic memory. Perhaps trauma isn't just what happens to us, it's how we interpret the event, the way to approach it.
Right, and how you process it. I mean, and there's a lot of research out there about the power of what poetry can do in terms of healing, and it's, there is some that says, it helps certain patients in terms of processing what they're going through. I know anecdotally, when I was writing for the the certified listening poet sessions that we were talking about earlier, I would send the work to somebody. It becomes their own poem. It's a gift that's for them. And again, that's also part about the process. The poem is the end result, but it's more about giving somebody the space and time to be heard and to feel valued. So that's another aspect of the certified listener poet work that's separate from just the fact that I write for myself. I'm doing that for myself when I do it alone. But when I do it for somebody else, it's just a matter of I'm basically saying that, what's in your head today? What's in your heart? What do you want to talk about? What's bothering you? What are you going through at the moment? Yeah. And then by that process, we create a piece for them that they can take, and it's for them alone. And it helps, the few people I've done it with, it's been a positive experience for them. It's something they carry with them. I know one woman, she has it up on her bulletin board at work. So it was kind of that was a nice thing to hear, It's just nice how I connected with somebody and touched them and were able to, have an effect. It's nice.
It is very nice. And if I may, I can also connect this to songwriting, because
please,
we're not all musicians, but what is songwriting if it's not poetry, expressing something? Think about,
of course,
Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, How I wish you were here. We are all swimming, we're all in a lost ball. Just look at the words and how they reflect, or think about Imagine, John Lennon, all these old songs, maybe because reflected I'm 61, so I know these songs very well. But it makes me think, Woman, John Lennon. Look at the words.
There's so many great singer-songwriters. I was listening to Dave Grohl this morning, in times like these, that we learn to live again, love again, it's the same. Yeah.
So you can listen to it, you can sing to it, you can put music to it, or you can just think about it, you can draw it. So the important thing is to stop the hustle, slow down, and take a moment to see who you are, how you're feeling, and give a name to those feelings. And that
100%.
is, what? That is, once you name your feelings, your anxiety starts to go away.
That is very true. And I'm sure there's science to back that up that I'm not aware of. Is there? There must be, right? Is there, that you know of?
So say it again. I just missed a little bit of audio.
No, the idea that you said that if you name your feelings, you're halfway there to process them, or there must be some science to that based on what. So anyway, I don't mean to be. I don't mean to get too clinical.
Down a rabbit hole there, but yes, when I've done a lot of anxiety hypnosis sessions, and once we start naming what's going on, we realize that the problem we thought we were facing is not the real problem. The problem is something else.
Yeah. So I would also encourage, and I don't mean to get, I'm just going to say this because I think it's, and from a societal standpoint, I think, men of a certain age, being mine, have a problem processing their feelings and translating their feelings for a range of issues that we don't need to get into here. But I think, But for me, this has been a great way to help learn more about what I'm feeling, articulating it in a way that makes sense. I'm not always perfect at it, but I definitely feel as if having this opportunity to do the work that I've been doing definitely puts me makes me more present, and makes me understand what I'm feeling, and that the feelings will pass, I think, is the other part of that. We talked about neuroplasticity. So I think the other thing is that, you can train yourself to think differently, to do something different, to understand, okay, this is the feeling I'm having. This is what I ought to do with it. And this is how I can let it pass, or just sit with it and understand it's okay to be angry, but it may not be okay to yell at somebody, or it may not be okay to do something else that's not productive. Yeah. So there's a difference.
Yeah. There's a huge time when we get the space to reflect. It can be 1 nanosecond of reflection. It can totally change the outcome. And
Absolutely.
I talked about this with Carrie Tan a couple of weeks ago, and I will be recording tonight with Andrea Treharzo, who worked with her in a book called Micro Moments, and explain how big leaders can make huge $1 million mistakes, but not because we're not understanding these micro moments when we are reacting to something, but we're actually not reacting to what's happening in the boardroom. We are reacting to something we discussed this morning for breakfast or something that happened last night, and we have not taken the time to reflect, to name it, to put it in the right box, to process it, and maybe to write some poetry about it.
Right. Well, isn't that sort of projection? I mean, that happens all the time, right? People project how they feel on someone else. And, I think there's an element to that as well, that you're not, these microseconds that you were talking about. Yeah. That's where you need to sort of pause and say, okay, how am I seeing this? What do I need to do differently? And be present in the moment and not worry. What's that saying, that if you're living in the past, you're depressed. If you're living in the future, you're anxious. But if you're living in the present, that's the gift, right? There's a reason why it's called.
That's another piece of poetry.
I didn't write it, but it's a Buddhist mantra. Yeah. But no, it is another piece of poetry. You're very, very right. And it stays with me, and I remember it.
Yeah. Understand your past, how it has formed you. Pick up what is useful. Let go of the toxic emotion that we have there. Let go of the revenge. Let go, not of the people, but of the feelings you had, that the people did something that you think was wrong for you. Maybe they were not trying to hurt you, but you think they hurt you. Let it go, because you're walking there with a huge package and luggage that is holding you down. And then where do you let it go? You let it go there, in poetry, in art, in dance, in expression, in connection. Yeah. So that's why those important micro moments are important, because they're like,
Yeah, I always think of it as a moving river, that there's this idea that when you write about something, there's this, I read it somewhere, no man, when he goes back to a river, no man is the same and the river is not the same, because it's always moving. So that's sort of, I'm paraphrasing very
Marisa Tier, my RTT teacher who taught me hypnosis, she always said, when you go to a shower, have a shower, the water goes, it washes everything out, and then it goes away. You can never have the water back. You can never have it. And that's what you can do with all the toxic, bad memories that are holding.
That's a wonderful metaphor, too, for that. That's a wonderful metaphor.
The river was a bit better.
No, I don't know. I think there's something more powerful about a shower, because people do it on a regular basis. And the idea of visualizing all of this washing away, rinsing off you. Yeah. I think it's great. That's what's a great matter. There's never one good. That's why poetry has been around for so long, because there's always more ways to say something and talk about the human condition.
Yes. It's a wonderful thought that we can use for closing. So we want to encourage everyone.
Sure.
If you have not tried maybe painting or drawing, whatever, maybe you can try to write down your feelings. Try with your journal. Try to write, instead of a whole page of a journal only, write also a piece of paper with a couple of notes from the day. How was the day today? See, how does it go? And how do you feel after writing that? Does it work?
Yeah. Yeah, and it does, and maybe take some of that and turn it into a short poem, 3 lines even. A haiku is only 3 lines.
And if you do write these lines, please let me know. Contact me. Contact Robert Minicucci. I will not ask you to read the surname. And say, hey, because of you, I've written 2 lines of poetry today. You can love.
That's fabulous. Yeah, I'd love to hear from folks. Yeah, the best way to get me is through the website. So I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear about it.
Have you got anything that we have not touched that you can touch now in 2 seconds, just to say a proper goodbye to everyone with a nice quote or encouragement?
I would just say, there's this great poem. I mentioned Seamus Heaney earlier, and he has this wonderful poem called Digging, which is about his process of getting to the heart of what he does as a writer. It's a wonderful poem. I don't think we have time for me to read it, but
3 minutes.
It's a 2 minutes?
3 minutes.
Right, let me see what I can do. If you're a minute, all right. Let me see because this is a wonderful poem that actually Irish children had to memorize in school. So,
let's go.
It's called Digging. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Under my window, a clean rasping sound, when the spade sinks into gravelly ground. My father digging, I look down, till his straining rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through potato drills where he was digging. The coarse boot nestled on the lug, the shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep, to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. By God, the old man could handle a spade, just like his old man. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Toner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf, digging. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge through living roots awaken in my head. But I've no spade to follow men like them. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with it.
Let's dig in. Let's create
Keep digging,
our own
folks.
poetry.
Go dig. Go do some digging.
That's good. Let's do some digging, everyone. Thank you so much, Robert, for being with
Oh,
us.
Franz, this has been a joy. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking interest in it.
I will send you the Trilussa poets, and maybe I'll.
Oh, yes, please do. Please do.
It's probably there on Google. And I hope you guys like this episode. Maybe you want to share it with somebody, like and subscribe so you get more of this amazing content coming for you. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Franz. Bye-bye.